Third level, dealt with. Dealt with is done when negative behaviors or infractions to the house rules norms are done for the second time of the same offense by a resident. A panel of three composed of senior resident, peer, and a friend, and are tasked to deliver a serious and stern reprimand to the subject of resident. Although the tool does not strictly require the presence of a staff, to attain its purpose, the staff should monitor its conduct to ensure that the panel assigned to the task really acted appropriately. It is done privately in a room or an area with no one else hearing the conversation. Fourth level, haircut. Haircut is done when negative behaviors or infractions to the house rules, norms in the same offense are done for the third time or more for first-time grave offenses. It is a carefully planned and structured verbal reprimand given by a staff with four other residents, senior resident, peer, big brothers, and a reprimand and a department head. The tone is more serious and can be loud, harsher, and more exaggerated in order to induce anxiety and eventually change the person's behavior. Before the group calls in the person, they will discuss among themselves the order of speakers, how intense the haircut will be, and what serious sanctions will be given, if any. The resident is then called inside and waits until he asks to sit. He will be asked if he knows the reasons for his appearance. After the person's response, he will ask to remain silent to enable him. Fifth level, learning experiences. A learning experiences or LE is an action or activity given to a resident who was subjected to haircut or general meeting who did an infraction to correct or modify a behavior. It may be task-oriented, routine tasks, or per interactions. Its intent is not to stigmatize the person but to motivate him to make resolution for the wrongdoings he committed. Sixth level, general meeting. A repeated breach to the cardinal rules necessitates a general meeting. The issue is discussed with the community to point out the violator the negative effect of the behavior hand on the community. The offense includes sexual acting out with a fellow resident, taking drugs, and engaging in physical fight with another resident. Other facilitates include stealing or even smoking as part of the cardinal. It should be realistic and humane. Close supervision with clear goals increase the effectiveness of the sanction. Close supervision with clear goals increases the effectiveness of the sanction. Upon lifting the LA after 7 days, the resident subject to the tool will be accorded with a senior resident coming from his or her static group who will provide guidance and continually monitor their performance in the house of the former. Last level, expulsion. In extreme cases, when a resident is incorrigible and becomes a threat to the community, initiator of jail disturbance, the director with the commendation of the disciplinary board may transfer him to the nearest jail facility with the appropriate court order. Emotional and psychological aspects of therapeutic community. Persons deprived of liberty are basically psychologically and emotionally challenged. Being incarcerated with uncertainties as to the outcome of the individual cases makes them feel isolated, helpless, and at times of hopeless, both about separation from their loved ones and society in general and all other issues that confront them while incarcerated. This emotional turmoil needs to be addressed to help them bounce back and experience in life of normalcy, despite their unique situation. TCMP provides therapeutic value of processing of feeling, which does not only lie on how freely one expresses them, but more so on the personability. What is counseling? Counseling is defined as a professional activity of helping individuals, groups, or communities enhance or restore their capacity of psychological and emotional social functioning and creating an environmental favorable for attainees for these goals. Skills and characteristics of counseling. According to the BJMP Therapeutic Community Model Program Manual, the skills or characteristics of counseling used in TCMP are empathy, warmth, respect, congruence, and confidentiality. Empathy. This refers to the ability to perceive the client's feelings and to determine accurate perception of the client. It is putting oneself in the client's shoes. When the client feels understood, as a sense of trust or rapport is developed, rapport paves the way to a more meaningful communication and may enable the client to understand, accept, warmth. It is also known as unconditional positive regard. It involves accepting and caring about the client as a person, regardless of any evaluation of the prejudice on the client's behavior or thoughts. It's most often conveyed through our nonverbal behavior or non-bodily gestures. Respect. It is refers to the belief in the client's ability to make appropriate decisions and deal appropriately with his or her life situation. Congruence, also known as genuineness, it includes the act of being honest and authentic and dealing with the client. It is showing real concern rather than focusing on techniques during sessions. It also being aware of the counselor's own unmet needs and how it may affect its relationships with the client. Confidentiality. It means that anything discussed during the consultations is held absolutely private and not be discussed anywhere. Pattern of counseling session. Introduction. First 10 minutes. Greet the client warmly. Smile and shake hands. Escort the counseling room. Explain how the session is going to be. Alleviate fears. Assure clients with confidentiality. 2. Information gathering. About 20 minutes. Know the reason for consultation. Clients can start anywhere. Counselors may take notes. Clients needs to do almost all the talking. Lesson 2. Counseling theories and approaches and TCMP psychological components. Learning objectives. Identify some of the counseling theories and approaches. Explain initial intake interview. Define individual counseling. Enumerate and explain the objectives of group counseling. Identify the different types of groups in TCMP. Humanistic theories. It holds that people have within themselves all the resources they need to live healthy and functional lives, and that problems occur as a result restricted or unavailable problem solving resources. Humanistic therapists care most about the present and helping their clients achieve their highest potential instead of energy spent on the past on negative behaviors. Humanistic believes in the goodness of all people and emphasizes the centered therapy. It is known as a person-centered therapy. It is a non-directive form of talk therapy. In this approach, the client acts as an equal partner in the therapeutic process, while the therapist remains directed, meaning they don't pass judgments on how feelings or offer suggestions or solutions. The therapist meaning they don't pass judgments on your feelings or offer suggestions of solutions. Existential therapy. It focuses on free will, self-determination, and the search for meaning, often centering on the person rather than on symptom. The approach emphasizes the client's capacity to make rational choices and to develop his or her maximum potential. It is aimed to aid clients in accepting and overcoming the existential fears inherent in being human, such as freedom and responsibility, death, isolation, and meaningless. Gestalt therapy. It is a form of psychotherapy that is centered in increasing a person's awareness, freedom, and self-direction. It focuses on the present moment rather than the past experience. It is based on the idea that people are influenced by their present environment. The word Gestalt is in a German term that generally means whole or form. It is an idea that views every individual as a blend of the mind, emotions, body. Cognitive approach. This counseling theory focuses on how people's thinking can change feelings and behaviors. It is brief in nature and oriented toward problem solving. It holds that people experience psychological and emotional difficulties when their thinking is out of sync with reality. When this distorted or faulty thinking is applied to problem solving, the result understandably leads to the faulty solutions. Cognitive behavior therapy. It teaches people different ways of thinking, behaving, and reacting to situations to help you feel less anxious and fearful. It helps a person to become someone who has a low opinion of their abilities. The therapist helps the person to find ways to question these thoughts, understand how they affect emotions and behavior, and change self determinations and patterns. Acceptance and commitment therapy. It is a type of mindful psychotherapy that helps a person to stay focused on the present moment and accept thoughts and feelings without judgment. It aims to help the client to move forward through difficult emotions so she can put their energy into healing instead of dwelling on the negative. ECT therapists operate under the theory of their suggest that increasing acceptance can lead to increase the psychoanalytical approach. It is also known as the historical perspective and has its roots with Sigmund Freud, who believed there were unconscious forces that drive behavior. The techniques he developed, such as free association, dream analysis, and transference, are still used by psychoanalysts today. These functionalists thought and behavior patterns from the past have unconscious working models that individual counseling or one-to-one counseling as a helping tool between the resident and counselor. Residents are usually referred to the counselor as needed by peers or staff based on the resident's behavior. It is done to accomplish the following objectives: to promote individual explorations and help surface the complete and troubled feelings among the residents, to provide a regular source of counsel and guidance to residents. Types of groups in TCMP. Static group. The static group is a permanent group of peers and leaders that meet regularly while the residents are in treatment. It is a sort of home group who provides support for one another and to the new members of the community. This is designed to provide a forum to self-expression and disclosure. It is usually facilitated by senior members of the group. It focuses on group relationships and is done one or once a week. It involves 10 to 15 residents and a counselor. Procedure of static group. Here are the procedures in conducting static group. Once a resident enters the jail, she is assigned to a particular static group. It serves as a permanent group that addresses the general issue in treatment. It utilizes confrontation from peers to evoke changes in the behavior, though the group is primarily supportive. Peer confrontation group. The participants in the peer confrontation group selected by the staff and group according to the peers, like adult members, will go with the same date of entry in the facility and same goes with the middle and any younger members. It is done in a more compassionate way where each resident tries to help one another. Participants confront each other on to what they for themselves when the facility and as they are coping with it. It is done one or twice. The encounter group. The encounter group serves as a safety valve within the community, which is usually high pressured and structured. It is a forum for members of the community to verbally express pent up or negative emotions within a structured and safe environment without resorting to violence and or aggression and without fear of reprisal. The primary goal of an encounter group is to raise awareness of behaviors and explore the underlying feelings that lead to such negative emotions. Danger of encounter group. A resident may drop asleep on another resident stating on his name, the name of the person he is dropping asleep, and the reason for dropping the sleep. Only feelings of hurt, anger, and concern can be reasons for an encounter. The staff will choose his co-facilitators who are also staff members. Once he has gathered 2 or 3 slips, he may schedule an encounter group. The facilitator should be able to guide the flow of the conversation and should be skilled enough to interrupt anytime he. 4 phases of encounter group: confrontation, exploration, resolution and communities, and socialization. The confrontation, this phase involves verbalizations of concerns or honest disclosure of emotion that has been provoked during interpersonal interaction with another person. Regardless of the cathartic nature of expression, the rules of the encounter group should always be respected. In this phase, all the feelings that were expressed are further examined and explored and find how it could be have resulted in such a way to evoke awareness on the connection of behavior, feelings, and attitude in this phase. Blaming on finger point at one party is avoided. It will only cause resentment from one party. Resolution and commitment. After some realizations and attaining some insights in their behaviors, the residents are now ready to move to the last phase to. He then goes to want to make commitments to avoid such occurrence in the future. Such commitment made by the resident will be monitored to make sure that they are being put to practice to avoid lapses. Socialization. It is a structured social event where all those involved in an encounter will have ample time to mend fences with those they have offended or hurt in the past. The purpose is to achieve closure, reaffirm relationships, and maintaining the unity of the community so that all those involved can make and leave the past behind. The extended groups. The extended groups are usually composed of 15 to 12 residents and facilitated by two highly trained staff members. It may last for 8 to 72 hours. The participants must have at least 4 months in the program and have been shown adequate stability before they can be invoked in the activity. It is a potentially inmate and intense session which needs a significant amount of preparation. It focuses here and now. Specialized groups. The goals of specialized groups are to providing group support with the aim of resolving problems and restoring healthy functioning of the residents who have concerned issues. To create a feeling of universality among residents who have similar issues or life experiences. To explore issues based on a certain themes as a guide, to provide a safe environment where residents can freely express their feelings and concerns. Men's group. It is done 1 hour once a week, might last for 6 sessions, and it involves 18 to 15 residents and a counselor. It provides an opportunity for all female residents to share and discuss their feelings on women issues, family relationships, and self-identifies, self-image, societal rule, and productive issues. Issues to be tackled are the specific problems. Men's group. It is held 1 hour once a week and involves 18 to 15 residents and a counselor. Topics include expression of feelings, reveal of true self, dealing with feeling and how to avoid abusive relationships, family conflicts, sexuality, and sexual relationships. Group sessions enable to each of the clients identify, express the feelings related to the trauma and lessons learned from those experience. Medication support group. It involves resident on medications and jail health personnel. It is done as long as the residents are on medication. Counselor hosts the group once a week. Who are on medical and psychiatric medication. Group members are educated in different kinds of medical and psychiatric problems and its effects, sharing on the intake of medication and as side effects of taking it. They also share and discuss how to face difficulties. Management. Anger management is a process that helps people identify stressors and helps them to stay calm in anger management for them to handle tense situations in the constructive and positive way. Secrets. Secrets are a group activity where participants are given the opportunity to unload emotional baggage and thus experience freedom from internal psychological conflicts. It promotes trust among the participants, knowing that each will reveal his utmost secrets to the group. It is also aims to defend mutual respect among the participants. It involves staff and 10 to 12 residents. It is usually done 1 to 2 hours once a month. Lesson 1. Spiritual and intellectual components and vocational and survival aspects of the community, therapeutic community. Spiritual and intellectual components of the CMP. As the BJMP aims to institutionalize therapeutic community modality program in all jails nationwide, the intellectual and spiritual component hopes to enhance the spiritual and intellectual dimensions of the residents by providing opportunities for them to develop self-worth and productivity. Spirituality. Spirituality is any action of activity that reflects and brings out the godness in a man. It is the broad concept of a belief in something beyond the self. It may involve religious traditions centering on the belief in a higher power, but it can also involve a holistic belief in an individual connection to others and to the world as a whole. Community philosophy. The therapeutic community philosophy embodies all the challenges and aspirations of most residents who feel alienated and the desire to overcome and the imposed limitations on the freedom and find their own places where they could feel safe and welcome. It acknowledged the importance of fellowship and shaping one's behavior and motivating one's fortitude of helping himself and others. Surrender. I am here because there is no refuge finally from myself. I am where I am right now because I admit that something went wrong with my life that I have no control over. I admit that I need the help of a higher power and others to bring positive change in my life. Self disclosure. Until I confront myself in the eyes and hearts of others, I am running. Until I suffer them to share my secrets. I have no safety from them, afraid to be known. I can neither know myself or any other. I will be alone. I know that unless I come out in the open and admit my mistakes, I will forever running from them. I need to disclose my deepest secrets to my peers so that I can find the right ways of dealing with them. By opening myself up for others to see through me, I will be free from my worries. Reflection. Where else but in our common grounds can I find such a mirror? There is no better place to disclose my feelings than in a place full of people with similar experiences, where I feel safe and free from prejudice. People are here from different reasons, but with a common problem. It is easy to identify with somebody who is going through the same experience as me. Self realization. Here, together, I can appear clearly to myself, not as the giant of my dreams, not the dwarf of my fears, but as a person, part of the whole, with my share in its purpose. Where I started to understand myself better, I began to realize how all my negative behaviors came to be. It is easier to deal with something when we understand its roots. I will learn not to look at myself too big or too small to handle all my worries. I will learn that I will deal with them as a person among others who are united together to help each other by similar attitudes. Growth. In this ground, I can take root and grow. I realize that this environment can help me overcome my mistakes and start a new life. I can anchor myself in this community. Self-worth. Not alone anymore, as in death, but alive to myself and to others. I began to believe in my ability to overcome all my challenges and give out all my best for myself and others. I also believe in my ability to be help to others who are in similar situations. Unwritten philosophy therapeutic community. The unwritten philosophy of the TC consists of slogans and aphorisms that are verbally given to the residents. Honesty. A lot of residents continue to live in a lie without the fear of its consequences. This virtue points out the importance of truth and relevance to recovery. Responsible love and concern. The residents will learn how to give and accept criticism about resentment, bounded by trust and confidence. The residents know the mistake need to be corrected if they aim to bring the other towards behavior maintained. To be aware is to be alive. Residents learn to be conscious of what is going in the environment. In TC, minor resident attitudes are engrossed to prevent major attitudinal problems to arise. Trust in your environment. There will be no change if there is no honesty and disclosure. Before doing so, trust must be established. One should believe that the program can help him. In doing so, he will learn to accept the program and is used to tools to evoke change in himself. Be careful what you ask for. You might just get it. Man by nature is ambitious. We never get content with what we have. We want more, even if having so will lead us to commit mistakes. We should learn to appreciate what we have and use it to better ourselves. No free lunch. In reality, nothing really comes easy. If we aim to something, we must work for it. There is no pride getting something that the easy way. What goes around comes around. Whatever you do, others will done unto you. Any good deed will be rewarded, while evil deeds will be punished in the end. We should always be mindful of our actions, as they are the parameters of how we will be judged in the end. You can keep it unless you give it away. Knowledge or learning is a better appreciated if shared with others. Something becomes valuable if used to help others make positive change in lives. Act as if. Learning and accepting the TC group program is not easy. Most residents feel resistant towards it. This philosophy teaches the residents to go with the flow as a way of compliance. In the process, they will learn to embrace it, and the behavior will soon become natural. Understand rather than be understood. It is sometimes common for us to be selfish. We find it hard to admit ourselves everyone around us to understand our mistakes. Hence, we tend to blame everybody but others. Understanding others is a virtue because it speaks wrongdoings, but we seldom try to understand humility and patience. If we take a first step to know where others are coming from, there would be fewer conflicts in relationships. Personal growth before vested status. Sometimes we become so wrapped up in our own status or positions in life that we tend to forget develop relationships with the people around us. We should cultivate our personal abilities before we scale the ladder to success. Compensation is a valid. A reward for working on hard is well deserved. We get what we put into it. Forgiveness. To accept what has been done, move and get on the other hurt and anger give us feeling of inner peace and happiness. Humility. To humble oneself before others in a laudable virtue. We are often enveloped by pride that is difficult for us to lower ourselves and admit inadequacies and limitations. By doing so, we develop a fair insight about ourselves, thus giving us the challenge to improve ourselves. Everyone around us to understand our mistakes. Hence, we tend to blame everybody but others. Understanding others is a virtue because it speaks wrongdoings, but we seldom try to understand humility and patience. If we take a first step to know where others are coming from, there would be fewer conflicts in relationships. Personal growth before vested status. Sometimes we become so wrapped up in our own status or positions in life that we tend to forget develop relationships with the people around us. We should cultivate our personal abilities before we scale the ladder to success. Compensation is a valid. A reward for working on hard is well deserved. We get what we put into it. Forgiveness. To accept what has been done, move and get on the other hurt and anger give us feeling of inner peace and happiness. Humility. To humble oneself before others in a laudable virtue. We are often enveloped by pride that is difficult for us to lower ourselves and admit inadequacies and limitations. By doing so, we develop a fair insight about ourselves, thus giving us the challenge to improve ourselves. You alone can do it, but you can do it alone. Oftentimes, we feel invincible and indefensible knowing that certain tasks can only accomplished by us. We don't realize that we have certain limitations that without the help of others, the burden will be too great for us. We should learn to reach out for help and admit our weaknesses. Pride in quality. The time flies so fast that we tend to hurry in everything we do. We lose our focus and do things haphazardly.
Sure, for sure.
Feelings and don't think. We usually react impulsively to things around us because of our feelings. We can even think an action has already been done. Everything starts in the mind. If we think before we act, chances are we will have with gut depths as we have analyzed the process before the action. Guilt skills. One of the underlying reasons for depression is guilt. Is a feeling of shame and self-blame. If a guilt feeling remains unresolved, it can be turned inwards, thus resulting in self-inflicted harm. Hang tough. Sometimes we feel that there is no end of our miseries, and we feel helpless and hopeless. No matter how damn life seems to be, there always hope. in every problem there is a solution. You are your brother's keeper. In TC, each one responsible for the other members of the community, the failure of one is the failure of all. This gives all the residents a sense of responsibility in shepherding others. The success of the program reflects how one cares for the other. Theme concepts of the day. It refers to a word saying that will serve a guide for the community to ponder upon in relation to their day-to-day interactions and behaviors. It is elaborated during the morning meeting by some members of the community to emphasize its relevance and how it can stimulate the residents' thoughts and help them change their behavior into something positive. It can also taken from the unwritten philosophies. Meditation. The meditation is used to help an individual establish and peace by contacting his inner wisdom. It is done 1 to 12 hours done. Seminars. Seminars are activities in the TC that provide intellectual stimulation hours and seek personal involvement among the residents. It is done 1 to 2 hours once a week. It is a way of providing information, improving the residents' speaking and writing abilities, and enhancing their listening ability to us understand all the information of being presented. The type of seminars conducted are follows. Discussion, open format and allow for group participation. Data sessions, given specific information and games. Games, mind-expanding activities to elicit thought, creativity, and imagination. And seminar series on varied topics. Debate. Debate is introduced to provide the residents the opportunity to learn how to reason, apply, and put up together arguments in the manner. Job function and hierarchical structure. Job function or work assignments are arranged in the hierarchy according to seniority, individual progress, and productivity. These include conducting all house services such as cooking, cleaning, kitchen, service, minor repair, revering in apprentices, and running all departments and meetings and peer encounter groups. To develop the right attitude on the residents towards work. 2. Procedures and guidelines of organization hierarchy therapeutic community. The senior members of the staff, usually the director, identifies the counselors coming from the staff personnel. As soon as the counselors were identified, the residents of the community will submit applications for a certain desired positions as indicated at the hierarchical structure. The applicants will be interviewed by the staff. After the interview, selection of applicants for key positions is done. Chapter 6, Rehabilitation and Reintegration Programs of Bukur, DDB, and PPA. Learning Objectives. At the end of this chapter, the students will be able to define Bureau of Corrections, identify the mandates of Bureau of Corrections, explain the reformation of national inmates of the Bukur, define dangerous drug ward, enumerate some of the drug treatment modalities, define parole and probation administration, explain the major rehabilitation program of PPA, define therapeutic community ladderized program, and enumerate and explain the phase in the therapeutic community ladderized program. Bureau of Corrections. The Bureau of Corrections, BUCOR, is charged with custody and rehabilitation of national offenders, that is, those sentenced to serve a term of imprisonment of more than 3 years. It was formerly called Bureau of Prisons when its main thrust before was safekeeping of national prisoners in 1987. The Bureau of Prisons was renamed Bureau of Corrections under Executive Number 292, the Bureau of Prisons of the Administrative Code of 1987, to emphasize the shift in its primary goal from punitive to rehabilitative approach. Bureau of Corrections maintains 7 correctional, namely, first, New Bilibid Prison in Muntinlupa City, Correctional Institute for Women and Mandaluyong City, Iwahig Prison and Penal Farm, Puerto Princesa City, Davao Prison and Farm, Davao del Norte, Sablayan Prison and Penal Farm, Occidental Mindoro, San Ramon Prison and Penal Farm, Zamboanga City, and lastly, Leyte Regional Prison, Aboyog Leyte. Mandates of the Bureau of Corrections. The Bucor shall oversee safekeeping and instituting and reformation programs to national inmates sentenced more than 3 years through progressive, effective, and efficient administration. First, what is safekeeping of national PDLs? In congruence with the United Nations Standard Minimum Rules for the Treatment of Prisoners, the safekeeping of PDL shall include shall include decent and adequate provision of necessities such as shelters, quarters, food, water, clothing, and medicine. Proper observance of prescribed privileges such as regulated communication and visitation, and efficient processing of necessary documentary requirements and records for their timely release. The processing of these documentary requirements shall be undertaken by the Directorate from Inmate Documents and Records. Number 2. Security of national inmates. It is the complementary component of safekeeping is in custodial function. It ensures that inmates are completely incapacitated from further committing criminal acts and have been totally cut off from their criminal networks while serving a sentence inside the premises of the National Penitentiary. Security also includes protection against illegal organized armed groups which have the capacity of launching an attack on any prison camp of the National Penitentiary to rescue their convicted comrade or forcibly amass firearms issued to corrections officers. The security of the inmates shall be undertaken by the custodial force consisting of corrections officers with a ranking system and salary grades similar to its counterpart in the BGMP. The circumferential security activities to be undertaken are proper custodial, implementation of prison laws and regulations to include prevention of prison violence, efficient recovery of fugitive, reformation of national inmates. The core objects in the administration of these reformation programs is the effective treatment of antisocial behavior and destructive personality disorders of an inmate. The circumferential reformation program, which will be institutionalized by Bucor for the inmates, consists of the following: A. Moral and spiritual program, education and training program, work and livelihood program, sports and recreation program, health and welfare program, and lastly, behavior modification program. What is moral and spiritual program? Moral spiritual program. This refers to the moral and spiritual values formation of inmates, which will be institutionalized by the Directorate for Moral and Spiritual Welfare, which include the practice of one's religion and beliefs, participating religious volunteer organizations and individuals shall be regulated and managed by the MSW. Education and training program. This refers to the administration of formal and non-formal education and skills development of inmates, which shall be institutionalized by the Directorate for Education and Training. Participating volunteer teachers, professors, instructors, and trainers shall be regulated and managed by DET. The third one, Work and Livelihood Program. This refers to the administration of skills development programs on work and livelihood to achieve self-sufficiency of inmates in the prison community and for income generation of the agency. These shall be institutionalized by the Directorate for Work and Livelihood. Volunteer participating agencies, non-government organizations, and individuals shall be regulated and managed by DWD. And last, sports and recreation program. This refers to the administration of physical and recreation programs to engagement to achieve mental alertness and physical agility in the spirit of sportsmanship. Health and welfare program. This refers to the administration of proper nutrition, hygiene, sanitation, cleanliness, and promotion of good health to inmates. This also includes appropriate provision of medical care of or hospitalization of sick, mentally impaired, old age, and disabled inmates. This shall be institutionalized by the Directorate of Health and Welfare Services. Volunteer non-government agencies, participating organizations, and individuals shall be regulated, managed by DHWS. Lastly, behavior modification program. This refers to the administration of programs for the character formation of an inmate necessary for effective interpersonal relationship in the prison community. This program also includes therapeutic community. This shall be institutionalized by the Directorate for Behavior Modification. Volunteer participating agencies, non-government organizations, and individuals shall be regulated and managed by the DBM. Dangerous Drug Board. Dangerous Drug Board (DDB) is the policymaking and strategy formulating body in the planning and formulations of policies and programs on drug prevention and control. One of the powers and duties of the DB is to design and develop in consultation and coordination with DOH, DSWD, and other agencies involved in the drugs control, treatment and rehabilitation, both public and private, a national treatment and rehabilitation program for drug dependence including a standard aftercare and community service program for recovering drug dependence. Dangerous drug board treatment and rehabilitation are components under the drug demand reduction pillar which aims to reintegrate into society recovering drug dependence. A chance to be treated and rehabilitated is afforded to those who have fallen prey to drugs. Using effective treatment modalities, drug dependents are being trained to kick out the habit and become productive citizens of the country once again. Requirements on the application for treatment and rehabilitation. First, drug dependency examination or DDE. Drug dependents may directly set an appointment with a DOH accredited physician for DDE. He/she may also secure a referral form for DDE from the legal division of the dangerous drug boards. If a drug dependent resides outside Metro Manila, he/she may coordinate with the nearest treatment and rehabilitation center or anti-drug abuse council in his place of residence. Philippine National Police PNP clearance. 3. Certificate of number pending case for the Regional Trial Court or RTC and or Municipal Trial Court MTC. If a minor drug dependent has a pending case, secure a certification of suspension of proceeding from the RTC or MTC where the case was filed. If an adult is drug dependent, secure a certification of dismissed case from RTC or MTC where the case was filed or certificate that the proceeding is suspended. Steps on treatment and rehabilitation of drug dependent. Secure referral from other requirements for drug dependency examination at the Legal Affairs Division Dangerous Drug Boards. DDE is conducted by a DOH accredited physician. For voluntary confinement, submit the result of the drug dependency examination together with the other requirements to the Legal Division of the Dangerous Drugs Board. The DDB Legal will process the petition for confinement prior to the release of the petition filed by the applicant with RTC. The release of petition is made either to the applicant or authorized representative. In case of compulsory confinement, the parents, spouse, relatives shall execute and submit a statement affidavit providing information as to the drug taking habit of a drug dependent. In case of compulsory confinement, the parents shall execute and submit an affidavit providing information as to taking habit of the dependent. Drug treatment of modality. Drug, drug treatment modality is the model or approach in the treatment of drug dependence utilized by the treatment and rehabilitation centers. Here are some of the treatment modalities being implemented. First, multidisciplinary team approach is a method in the treatment and rehabilitation of drug dependence which avails of the services and skills of a team composed of psychiatrists, psychologists, social worker, occupational therapists, and other related disciplines in collaboration with the family and the drug dependent. Second, therapeutic community approach views addiction as a symptomatic manifestation of a more complex psychological problem rooted in an interplay of emotional, social, physical, and spiritual values. It is a highly structured program wherein the community is utilized as the primary vehicle to foster behavioral and attitudinal change. The patient receives the information and the impetus to change from being a part of the community. Role modeling and peer pressure play a significant part in the program. The goal of every behavior pattern teach them personal responsibility, positive their self-image, create a sense of human community and provide an environment in which human beings can grow and take responsibility and credit for the growth. Third, Hazelden, Minnesota model views addiction as a disease, an involuntary condition caused by factors largely outside a person's control. The program consists of didactic lectures, cognitive behavioral psychology, Alcoholic Anonymous, principles, 12 steps principles, and bibliotherapy. It aims to treat patients with chemical dependency, endorsing a set of values and beliefs about the powerlessness of people over drug taking and turning to a higher power to help them combat the disease. In this modality, counselors and patients collaborate in defining the path to recovery. Fourth, spiritual approach uses the Bible as the primary source of inspiration to change. It views drug addiction as a sin and encourages the patients to turn away from it and renew their relationships with the Lord. Elec- Eclectic approach aims to applying a holistic approach in the rehabilitation program. The spiritual and cognitive components of 12 steps complement the behavioral aspects of the therapeutic community. The skills and services of rehabilitation professionals and para-professionals are made available. In doing so, different personality aspects of drug dependence are well addressed, geared towards the rehabilitation and recovery. Recommended therapeutic activities. According to the Manual of Operations for Drug Abuse Treatment and Rehabilitation Centers, here are some recommended therapeutic activities that can be used in the treatment and rehabilitation of drug dependence. Psychotherapy is a form of treatment on problems of an emotional nature in which a trained person deliberately establishes a professional relationship with the patient with the object of remedying, modifying, or retarding existing symptoms and mediating distorted patterns of behavior and promoting positive personality growth and development. Counseling is the process of assistance extended by a center personnel in an individual or group situation to a needy patient. The process aims to enabling the individual to learn and pursue more realistic and satisfying solutions to his difficulties. It is a problem oriented and helps the individual understand himself and develop the ability to make decisions and make choices. Third one, individual therapy involves a one-to-one relationship between the counselor and the patient with the primary aim of helping the latter get rid of and reduce his drug abusing behavior so that he may be able to get involved in the productive work and develop insights into his conditions. Group therapy is a form of therapy where the individual is helped through a group process. Each member of the group receives immediate feedback from the other members regarding his verbal and other forms of behavior. Group on the produce support and encouragement are given to the subject premise and that these are effective devices which can positive results toward behavior modification. Family therapy as a form of intervention is based on the recognition that the family, as a primary social unit, can be a source of problem leading to a drug use. Family therapy may include restructuring of the family environmental, manipulation, strengthening of family communication, and discovery of family members to help facilitate the rehabilitation of drug dependence. Community work projects include, among others, environmental and and energy conservation projects, training in agriculture, tree planting, and other social, civic, religious activities. The participation of patients in a community projects can help them integrate into the local society and can also promote community understanding of their needs and recognition of the remaining potential and acceptance. Sheltered workshops provide training for skills development and employment with appropriate compensation in a controlled environment to increase self-esteem and chances for outside placement. Last, social reintegration is a process of assisting the patients to become socially and economically self-sustaining without the use of drug upon his return to the community. Parole and Probation Administration. Parole and Probation Administration (PPA) is an attached agency of the Department of Justice which provides a less costly alternative to imprisonment of offenders who are likely to respond to individualized community-based treatment programs. Their mandates are following: promote the correction and rehabilitation of an offender by providing him with individualized treatment, provide an opportunity for reformation of a penitent offender which might be less probable if he were to serve a prison sentence, and lastly, prevent the commission of offenders. Major rehabilitation program for PPA. The goal of rehabilitation program of PPA is to effect the rehabilitation and reintegration of probationers, parolees, pardonees, and first-time minor drug offenders as productive, law-abiding, and socially responsible members of the community through well-planned supervision programs for probationers, parolees, pardonees, and first-time minor drug offenders, which are aligned to national program trusts of the government such as Sariling Sikap, jail decongestion, establishment of innovative and financially and technically feasible projects for the moral, spiritual, and economic upliftment of probationers, parolees, pardonists, and first-time minor drug offenders utilizing available community resources. PPA has adopted a harmonized and reintegrated treatment program of these clients to effect the rehabilitation. This harmonized and integrated program involves the restorative justice principle and concepts, the therapeutic community modality, and lastly, the use of volunteer probation aids. Figure 1, PPA's Harmonized Rehabilitation Program. It is an individual community based three pronged approach to crime prevention and treatment of offenders with restorative justice as its philosophical foundation, therapeutic community as the treatment modality, and volunteers as lead community resources. Restorative justice. Restorative justice is a process through which remorseful offenders accept responsibility for their misconduct, particularly to their victims and to the community. It creates an obligation to make things right through proactive involvement of victims, ownership of the offender, of the victim, and the community in search for solutions which promote repair, reconciliation, and reassurance. Thus, the community search for solutions. The restorative justice process is actively participated in by the victim, the offender, and or any restorative or any individual or community member affected by the crime to resolve conflicts resulting from the individual or community member. Criminal offense, often with the help of a fair and impartial third party. Restorative processes include mediation, conferencing, sentencing, support circle, and the like. The restorative outcome is the agreement obtained as a product of a restorative justice process. Restorative restorative outcomes include restitution, community work service, and any other program or response designed to accomplish reparation of the victim and the reintegration of the victims and or offenders. Volunteer probation aid. Volunteerism is a program of the Parole and Probation Administration (PPA) aimed at generating maximum, effective, and efficient citizen participation and community involvement in the process of client rehabilitation, prevention of a crime, and the overall administration of criminal justice. The task of volunteer probation aides include offender guidance and counseling, act as a plaintiff's facilitator, implement treatment's objectives as a provided in the program of supervision, refer to appropriate agencies, clients with various spiritual, mental, social, emotional, physical, or health needs, and lastly, act as a resource individual. Therapeutic community modality. Therapeutic Community (TC) in DOG PPA program for rehabilitation of offenders is a self-help social learning treatment modality that uses TC family community of staff and clients as the primary therapeutic vehicle to foster behavioral and attitudinal change. Its rules and norms, shared beliefs, tools, and processes combine to enable clients to actively work toward their individual goals for right living. It is held in a community based, non toward the individual goals for right living residential setting. It addresses clients' individual and group needs through a holistic, multidisciplinary range of activities and interventions within the five treatment categories. First category, relational behavior management. Second category, affective emotional psychological. Third category, cognitive intellectual. Fourth category, spiritual. And last category, and psychomotor vocational survival skills. In addition, it integrates the restorative justice principles and practices and mobilizes involvement of the general public through the volunteer probation aids. Therapeutic Community Ladderized Program or TCLP. The PPA imposed the Therapeutic Community Ladderized Program (TCLP), wherein it integrates the therapeutic community tools, norms, principles, and methods with the probation and parole requirements, implemented in progressive phases within the non-residential community-based setting of the PPA's rehabilitation program of clients. It provides clients with success milestones through graduated completion criteria and aims for more active involvement of clients and their families. It seeks to give clients sustainable foundations for life after probation of parole, empower implementers, and raise the application of TC modality to higher professional standards. Program phases of TCLP. Preparatory stage. This stage corresponds to the 60-day investigation period for petitioners for probation, parole, executive clemency. As part of the investigation, the assigned officer accomplishes the intake interview using the worksheet and secures additional relevant information through other investigation procedures. The investigation officer's findings, together with the results of client's needs and problem checklists, will provide the initial general assessment that will, in turn, be used as a basis for preparation for client's personal development assessment that will, in turn, be used as basis for preparation for client's personal development plan if probation parole is recommended. At this stage, the IO and CPPO OIC should aim to create in the client and his family a mindset of cooperation and support for the former's rehabilitation program. At the end of the preparatory stage, the clients shall have accomplished the first needs and problems checklist and initial personal development plan together with the IO. Clients shall have committed to comply with the conditions of the provisions, parole, and participations in the TC program. Problems that may hinder clients' participation in the TC program shall have been identified and addressed. Clients, family members, and VPAs shall have attended the introductory briefing during the investigation period or within the first month of supervision. Lastly, the local government units of chief executive and or officials shall have been informed and invited to the introductory briefing. Criteria for entry into phase 1 are my needs and problems checklist accomplished. MPDP initially accomplished. Client committed in the PDP comply with the conditions of probation, parole, and to participate in the TC program. Client and family members attended introductory briefing. Client's family expressed commitment to support his/her participation in the TC. Program Phase 1 Orientation. This is where the building a foundation of the TCLP is done. Clients are assimilated into the TC culture during this phase. He/she requires understanding of the program philosophy and beliefs of TC, his/her role in the hierarchical structure, and rules to be observed as a TC family member. Clients is familiarized with the TC unique terminology and introduced to the behavior shaping tools with opportunities to practice as well as actually uses the basic ones. The process of enculturation also generates self-awareness, challenges denials, and begins the client's journey to self-responsibility and accountability. This phase culminates with drawing up his/her behavior, attitude, traits, habits, plan, and a bath contract, and making an assessment of his/her progress through the checklist for promotion for phase 2. At the end of the orientation phase, the client shall have relational behavior management, complied with probation parole conditions, used pull-ups, affirmations, elaboration, and other behavior shaping tools, refrain from use of prohibited drugs, establish bonding and trust with the TC family, involves some family members in the rehabilitation activities. 2. Affective, emotional, psychological. Shown good grooming. began to accept responsibility for their personal change. Cognitive intellectual identify personal strengths and weaknesses and resolve to change specific negative behaviors and attitudes. Acquired knowledge of the TC concepts, tools, and processes. Spiritual applied at least one TC unwritten philosophy. Developed insight on the rehabilitation program through reflections, demonstrated understanding and appreciation of the TC philosophy, expressed insights on their faith in God as the primary source of help in order to change. Lastly, psychomotor vocational skills demonstrated responsibility through performance of assigned tasks. Criteria for promotion to phase 2. Relational behavior management. Complied with conditions of provisions parole. Completed 100% of TC phase 1 sessions. Performed an assigned rule of participated in the required number of morning meetings. Tested negative for prohibited drugs prior to promotion. Became a member of the TC family. Clients' family members involved in pertinent phase 1 sessions and or reinforcing activities. Affective, emotional, and psychological. Improved and maintained hygiene and good grooming. Declared their commitment to carry out their bath plan and bath contract. Cognitive intellectual. TC terminologies understood and used. Spiritual. Use an unwritten philosophy to express concern for a TC brother or sister. Accomplish at least 50% of our required reflections. Quoted and explained semblance of the TC philosophy. Psychomotor vocational survival skills. Perform the duties of their position in the TC hierarchical structure. Participated in required reinforcing activities. Reviewed and or modified MPDP formulated in the preparatory stage. Prepared a roadmap to success prior to terminations of provision parole. Phase 2 Primary Treatment. The focus of primary treatment is to effect behavioral change and develop client initiative and self-discipline. Through constant applications of TC values and with regular use of TC tools, clients manifest a socially acceptable behavior and live an addiction-free lifestyle. Equipped with basic manifest a socially acceptable literacy and employable skills imbibed with TC values and precepts. Clients become more productive member of their community, gender sensitive, environment conscious, and economically empowered. At the end of the primary treatment phase, the client shall have relational behavior management, continue to comply with probation parole conditions, demonstrate specially acceptable behavior, become familiarized with behavior shaping tools and apply them and appropriately, become aware of and apply correct practices and environment issues,